It's for filming or something. Very dusty, matey.
I'm used to the dust. Okay. It was a quiet day in November. The days are short at that time of year. It can be 2:30 and feel like 8 p.m. Jack looked out the window and took in his view, a quiet suburban street, dim in the gloom of the late afternoon. By his side, his laptop providing a bright blue light, which illuminated his small room. A packet of Doritos strewn by its side, and Reddit open in 3 tabs. Jack used to have a job working for the NHS, admin type stuff for a large trust. He spent his days carting records in boxes from archives to desks and back. They decided they were going to scan them all in, so he wasn't useful anymore. Since then, he had looked for work as a graphic designer. He hadn't managed to get any, and he had slowly fallen into a pattern of waking up late, applying for jobs, feeling overwhelmed, making food, wanking, and watching TV, or scanning the internet for hours on end. Each day he would start with the best intentions, but it was easy to fall into a pattern of looking at his phone. Then his computer, and whiling away the day clicking between YouTube videos and podcasts. He was a big fan of squash and played it every Sunday in a league at the Sobel Centre. So he watched squash championships on YouTube, admiring the tenacity of the players, the deftness with their rackets. He'd watch these for hours on end, sometimes listening to squash podcasts at the same time. His favourites were Squash Flies and the Sasquatch Chronicles. These were Canadian podcasts and produced by 30-somethings like Jack from their bedrooms. He would chuckle at their jokes, and he even followed the presenters on Instagram. He even considered adding them on Facebook. Jack walked down to the shop. The people he passed were so alien to him, the Turkish team with his mask astride his chin, the young Polish mum with a double buggy, the older Jamaican man with a cigarette falling from his fingers. In Sainsbury's he walked up and down the aisles aimlessly, throwing courgettes and onions into his basket, a young woman looking at the bakery section. He imagined her life. What was she baking? She reached for the bicarbonate of soda. Pancakes? She slung it into her basket and grabbed the caster sugar. A cake? He could ask her. You wouldn't be baking a cake for yourself though, would you? Maybe. Maybe he could ask her what cake she was baking, and maybe they could talk. He hadn't talked to anyone else for 3 days now. She looked back at him as his gaze fell on the lime juice, and then she disappeared towards the ice cream. He bought his courgettes and left without looking back. At home he stumbled over a pile of boots in the doorway and made his way up to his room with his shopping. He left the overflowing orange bag on top of his chest of drawers, the courgette falling on the floor as he slouched into his office chair, the bright light above his head illuminating everything with a searching gaze. He opened his computer and started the podcast he enjoyed, the Sasquatch Chronicles. They were discussing the recent Squash World Championships in Doha, as the women's event had been cancelled due to security reasons. The show's ebullient hosts were discussing the women's game and forecasting who might have been successful. Slowly he sunk into his sheets and imagined they were in the room with him. His alarm sounded at 9:30 a.m. He rolled out of bed as he had an appointment with the job centre to sign on at 10, a short walk from his house. He'd been doing this every 2 weeks for 2 years now. It's always the same, sitting on a lime green sofa at the time of his appointment, sauntering to the machine, pressing some buttons, printing a receipt which says a job on it like data analyst, Deloitte, waiting some more, discovering a screwdriver or a hair clip in the sofa, moving. Jack Entwistle. Hello, Jack. Have you had any interviews in the last 2 weeks? No. How many jobs are you applying for per day? 4? 4. Have you got your diary? Thanks. That's you signed on for the next 2 weeks. Thanks, Mary. He kicked a pile of dried leaves on his way back home, tripped over a pile of his housemate's boots and headed to his room past the courgette on the floor. Opening up YouTube, he'd started to watch a video about forehand technique, thinking about the league on Sunday evening. He'd been put in a higher tier and he had to start at the bottom. He didn't want to come across like a total newbie. He decided to root around for his racket as the video was playing. The video then autoplayed onto another video. This one was about the rise of a conspiracy theory that was rocking YouTube in the States. Hidden in message boards deep in the internet was a man, or a woman, or a bot, who released messages every once in a while, and people were starting to take notice. Everyone on the internet, at least everyone on YouTube, was talking about it. They even mentioned it in the Sasquatch Chronicles. Jack decided to do a bit more research. He didn't have much else to do. The user was called Doggerland, and he was posting on 4chan. Doggerland claimed to be part of a secret intelligence services, and they were aware of a cabal of left-leaning individuals who controlled the media, the government, and were plotting to remove individual liberty and create secret sex cults all across the world. Jack kept scrolling. He left videos with theories running in the background of his room, Kentucky housewives ranting, Norwegian teenagers, somewhere trying to work out who Doggerland was, where they were, whether they were made up. Too many things seem to make sense for it all to be made up, but what would someone who was a spy get out spreading information online, and how could these outlandish stories be true? Slowly he started to piece it together. Doggerland had joined 8chan on the 1st of November 2019 and began releasing documents about the upcoming US election. Usually these were posts which went into details about flight logs of high-ranking US officials and their secret ambitions to sex traffic children to private islands. Doggerland was exposing this because he wanted the internet to help him to prove and then topple these figures. And the internet delivered. They were tracking, stalking, doxing and compiling dossiers of information, freeze-framing speeches, tracking emails and releasing transcripts of conversations, all with the ambition of framing these individuals. Jack was in data, kinda. He used to move box files around archives. Perhaps there was a physical paper trail or something that he could track down. He rooted through the box under his bed, his old NHS pass. Could this help him find Doggerland? Someone had compiled all the information that the internet had found out about him or them. He was male. People assumed that because he was on 4chan. He was youngish. He had an intimate access to government records. Perhaps he was in the intelligence services. He would publish records online, framing high-profile figures and politicians, celebrities, tracking them to private islands where it was presumed sex trafficking, drugs, and human sacrifice was taking place. Some people even thought they were lizards. He had to find some kind of thread, so he scoured, clicking through the profiles of people who wrote the comments, messaging accounts that seemed to have new information. He even started printing off clues. Old school. He walked to W. Smith and bought a box file. He would find Doggerland. The next morning his alarm went off at 9:30 a.m. He had renewed purpose. He went out on his walk and headed towards his old work, past the job centre. He wasn't really sure why he was going that way or what he wanted to find. He kind of just thought, why not? It was Saturday, so not many people were in the archive. He was midway through scanning all the files anyway, so it was mostly empty. His pass still worked. It wouldn't have mattered, as he knew the back fire escape was never properly shut anyway. He walked through the stacks and spent hours, days. He had spent hours, days, years ordering and cataloguing, finding the patient's records and replacing them. This archive covered the whole of London and contained duplicates of everyone's medical records. He had made notes about the names of some of the accounts that made YouTube videos about Doggerland. Maybe if he started producing documents, he could get the internet aflame. He opened a box, flicking through the names and conditions. Some of the people were dead, other infants. Others had headaches or irritable bowel syndrome. The records had lost all meaning to him as he thumbed so regularly through them. As an observer, they would look antiquated, the yellowing paper and automatically typed script. He ruffled the papers in his pockets where he had written down the names of some of the prominent YouTubers in the movement: Kegley Murphy, Giles Smith, Samantha Sandhurst. While most of the prominent ranters were American, there were a few UK-based and even a few in London who spoke about theories concerning the cabal. He had to work through several boxes before he found them. Sitting on the green carpet, he strewn the records around. One of the YouTubers lived in Kentish Town. She was prescribed serious antipsychotics. Another lived in Peckham, and he was suffering PTSD after sexual assault as a child. He took some photos on his phone and returned home. He tripped over the boots in the hallway and again over the courgette which had rolled under his bed now. He printed the records and slumped into bed. In the morning, he set up a fake email address and emailed the records to the people saying that he would put them on 4chan unless they gave him information he had on Doggerland. They didn't email back immediately. He waited all day and refreshed his inbox. Eventually, one of the forums came to life. "I've received information from Doggerland directly," started the post. It went into detail about the email and the medical records. The person that Jack thought was Doggerland. Eventually, the others contributed to the thread. One even made a video about it, how Doggerland tracked me down and what I'm going to do about it. In the video, he outlined the emails that Jack had sent him, blurring his medical records. At the end of the video, he said he was going live to discuss it. Jack's interest was piqued. The man started talking. He was freestyling, his voice lilting and lyrical, repetitive and mesmerising. He'd set up a studio in his house, but it looked like a professional might use. 1,000 people were online and watching. You see, the thing is, this is a warning shot. Doggerland has seen us and knows we're trying to find his identity. He's warning us, but he's also encouraging us. He wants us to delve deeper and uncover the cabal, but not to damage his reputation. He wants us to dig deeper. He wants us to succeed, to go closer, to uncover. Before the storm, before the awakening, before the second coming, you feel me? When all the secrets are spilled, when we, the digital soldiers, can rise up and topple the corrupt regimes that keep us imprisoned, that keep us down. They foreclose us, they enslave us, they control us. Jack watched him speak and forgot that he was the source of this information. He remained in trance. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He wrote a comment. Don't let them control us. It was empowering. He was part of something, part of a group. To Doggerland, I see you, thank you. I will be your loyal servant and provide you with what you need. He was speaking directly to Jack. Later, he received an email. Okay, that was that. I've got one more as well.